Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters, and welcome back to another recommendation list. This time, centering around a film I'm very excited about. I know, shocker. But this time we're talking about a bit of a smaller movie than we did last time. We spoke about Maxine at the beginning of the month, and just last week we talked about Longlegs, which absolutely exploded. Thank you guys so much for all your love and support on that video. That is the highest viewed video we have on this channel. Like, 2 years into this, that video absolutely blew past any of my expectations, and it has just been completely humbling. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. But enough of me groveling, let's talk about Oddity. Yes, this was on my top 6 films you should look out for in the month of July. This was my number 1, only because Maxine and Longlegs were already so close to coming out. They were already so big that I just figured I would talk about smaller films. And if we're talking about films that I don't think have like the biggest push on them right now but deserve it, it's this film for sure. And unlike the last couple of lists I've done, I've actually seen Oddity. Yes, the folks over at Shudder sent us a screener a few weeks back. I've seen the film, I've gotten to digest it, our review will be out shortly, and yeah, I am coming at this from someone who's actually seen the movie that I'm recommending these other films for. So this list is specifically curated, but to the tones of Oddity. I don't want to give anything away too specifically. The plot synopsis is very, very brief. Basically, if you look it up on IMDb or anywhere else, all it's going to say is uncovering the truth behind her sister's death with the help of a wooden mannequin. Yes, it's very, very brief, and it should be, because I think the less you know about this movie, the better. So with that said, none of these films, plot-wise, are similar to Oddity. They may have 1 to 2 elements that are very similar, but this is very much going towards tone. This is going towards general vibe, and basically just films that I think you should watch, because Oddity, in the grand scheme of things, is a really well done ghost story. And these are a couple of films that deal with possession, that deal with ghosts and things like that I really think you should check out. So let's get into it, and as always, if you like this video, please hit that like button, please subscribe to the channel. I can't wait to bring more of these to you, but for now, let's talk about 5 films you should watch before you see Oddity. Kicking things off with last year's indie darling that was Talk to Me. Yes, this film absolutely cleaned up at the box office. People went crazy for this very original possession film, and that is probably the biggest compliment I can give to Dani and Michael. They absolutely delivered on this concept that really intrigued people from the get-go. We're talking about an embalmed hand that lets you speak with the dead, but instead of just face-to-face, you can let them in and they speak through you. Again, super original concept, very, very fun. I loved how creepy it got when they were able to do those scenes. They were able to catch that, pitch, that tone, everything just right. Now, is this the scariest movie on this list? Absolutely not. But I think that there is enough creativity here, enough subtlety to the creativity here where they're not trying too hard. They have a good concept and they're just going to run with that. And I think that is probably the shining light of this film. Now, I'm sure everybody who's watching this knows the story of Talk to Me, but for those of you who don't, here's a little synopsis. When a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand, they become hooked on a new thrill, until one of them goes too far and unleashes terrifying supernatural forces. This film feels very Nightmare on Elm Street, which is kind of a weird thing to compare it to. We're not dealing with a serial killer here, no, but we are dealing with teenagers, young adults who are just kind of messing around with things that they shouldn't be playing with. There's a lot of different movies you can compare it to, but when I talk to people, I bring up the feeling of Nightmare on Elm Street, especially in some of these later hospital scenes, and everybody just agrees because it's just got that tone, that pitch. I'd really love to see these two tackle a Nightmare on Elm Street based off of this film, but I mean, it looks like that's not in the cards for anyone at the moment, but we'll see. only time will tell. And the boys who did this are doing another film later next year, so we get to see that. And then I guess they're doing a sequel to this. I'm open to it, but at the same time, I kind of think this is a perfect standalone movie. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think below on that one. But yeah, kicking things off with Talk to Me. Again, we're talking about objects that are possessed, and of course, one of the most influential modern horror films that we've had in the last couple of years. Coming in at number 4, I have a film that it is one of the few films that I can say actually did freak me out, that did scare me when I watched it. And it's not because of the content that's, in your face, as much as it is just the thought and the very, very end of this film. It is something that hasn't really left my mind since I saw it. And there's very few films that do that when it's talking about scares, when it's talking about something that's unsettled me. And that goes to 2008's Lake Mungo. Now, I know a couple of you in the comments are going to be like, oh my god, Lake Mungo, it's overrated, blah, 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 it's not that scary. And you're right. On its face value, it's not scary. But I think that the beauty of this film is that the way it's presented to you, like this true crime documentary about this missing girl and them trying to, just come to terms with the fact that their daughter and his sister are just gone. Like they're never going to find her again. There's something haunting about that. And then also what they end up doing with the story, which I won't get into detail, but they really, really play it smart, and they make you second guess so many things. And there is a twist and a turn in this film that I didn't see coming at all, and it is disturbing, but on a completely different level. I'm not talking supernaturally. I'm just talking about just what humans do and how we interact with each other and the awkward situation that this family finds themselves in. And I mean, there are a lot of moments in this that just had me kind of sitting there saying, God, this is uncomfortable. This is really, really harrowing stuff. And I will say, for those of you looking for that final punch, that one that's just going to shock the hell out of you at the end of this, it is not there. What it is what the information they give you in basically the end credits, that is what's going to scare you. That is what's going to haunt you if you don't catch it, because it is really smart. And when I go back on subsequent rewatches of this film, I just get the chills, man. I really love what Joel Anderson did with this. He doesn't really make movies anymore. He's produced a couple of things recently, like Late Night with the Devil he was an executive producer on. But yeah, he has not done a follow-up film after this, which is quite a shame, because I think he tapped into something really creepy and really scary, and again, just a really great drama too, like a really solid film. So definitely check out Lake Mungo. There's really nothing that I can say as far as like a descriptor, but this is what they have on IMDb, just for those of you who would like to know a tiny bit more. Strange things start to happen after a girl is found drowned in a lake. Yeah, they really don't give you much of anything, and I don't feel like giving you more than just my praise and my encouragement to go watch it, because, yeah, I really like Lake Mungo. Moving on into number 3 with another film that I absolutely adore, and one that I do have a bit of an interesting story with, because I didn't always love this movie. The first time I saw it, I was a bit younger, and I just thought, yeah, that had some creepy moments, but really wasn't for me. And you gotta understand, I wasn't the biggest possession fan. I said it before, but I was much more of a slasher and creature feature kind of kid. So when I revisited this film before the director's most recent outing, I was quite surprised at just how much just meat there was on this bone that I completely overlooked. And that film is 2012's Sinister. Yes, I freaking adore this movie. I mean, I don't know what it was about me or the age that I was, but, now sitting back as a 26-year-old dude watching this movie, I can appreciate it for what it is. And I don't think the film's perfect. I really think that the ending just shits the bed so hard. But I think that there's so much to love about how this film builds up terror and tension. And that is why I think I wanted to put this on this list for Oddity. Because Oddity does a really great job at that. It really builds tension. It really builds this eerie energy throughout its runtime, and Sinister does a very similar thing right up until the end. But yeah, this is from Scott Derrickson, and if you don't know anything about Sinister, I'll give you a quick rundown. A controversial true crime writer finds a box of Super 8 home movies in his new home, revealing that the murder case he's currently researching could be the work of an unknown serial killer whose legacy dates back to the 1960s. And yeah, I mean, it's such a fresh concept, and there is a lot of good reason why people have just fallen in love with this movie and praised it for years, and I'm really happy to have kind of joined that pack, because not only is this, again, a creepy concept with a really great hook, but the cast here is amazing. I mean, Ethan Hawke, I absolutely adore the guy, but in here he is at one of his best, because he's a character that you root for, but you're also upset with. You're also against, because they make decisions that they frustrate you. You understand to one degree, but you also just know that this is just sending him down a path of no return. I also want to say that James Ranson as Deputy So-and-so is just perfect. I love the scene where they're just talking about something going on in the attic, and they kind of have this back and forth about snakes. I don't want to say any more. Watch the movie if you haven't seen it. It's one of the best lines in horror cinema, in my opinion. But yeah, I mean, this movie is just expertly crafted. I think this and The Black Phone are some of Scott Derrickson and C. Robert Cargill's best work. And I can't wait to see what these guys do next. And yeah, I definitely think this is a must-watch before you sit down to watch Oddity. For my number 2 pick, we are just jumping 1 year forward with the film Oculus from 2013. Yes, this is very early career Mike Flanagan we are talking about, folks. And I think this is pretty underrated. Again, I was kind of a late adopter of this, I guess you could say. I came to it very late in the game. I remember when it came out, it just didn't strike me. Again, it just seemed very generic. I didn't like any of the trailers. I didn't know who Mike Flanagan was at the time. I didn't care who Mike Flanagan was at the time. But with my love of things like Midnight Mass and Doctor Sleep, I had to come back to this at some point, and I'm so glad that I did, because this is another one that just centers around an object, in this case a mirror, that has some force, some entity, some demon attached to it that terrorizes this brother and sister. And yes, objects being kind of the theme of this list with Oddity, but what I'm really leaning on with this one is the brother-sister dynamic, because it shows just how far you will go for a family member. And being is that in the descriptor for Oddity, we hear about a sister who is seeking revenge for her sister's murder. I think that only makes sense. I think that of all the films I picked, this one has the strongest familial ties, even though they are kind of at odds with each other at times. I think that you really see just a couple slight hints of what Mike Flanagan will be best known for going forward in his career, really grounding his characters, really grounding his people into these horrifically terrible supernatural situations. And it's one of those films that I think will get better as time goes on, with more people picking it up. Mike Flanagan's been making a bigger name for himself year after year, and yeah, I think it's about time that more people take a step back and see this. I know everybody kind of goes back to Hush as being probably his biggest, earliest film, and although that's one that I love and I think is great, I think Oculus still has a lot to deliver, and I really think that you guys should go back and see it if you haven't. And if you haven't revisited it in a while, definitely do so. It's very solid. Moving on into my final pick, yes, the number 1 film you should watch before you see Oddity. I mean, I gotta be honest here, when you watch Oddity, there really isn't many things like it, which is why I said this is so difficult, because I think that there are a lot of tones and a lot of things that are similar, but from a storytelling perspective, it's pretty original, and I admire it for that. And when it comes to films that I can recommend, there's really only one film that stands out that really takes a candle to it, and that is another Damian McCartney's projects, another one of his, and that is Caveat, his first film. Yes, this is from 2020, and this movie is bonkers, to say the least. I mean, this is one of those films that is just going to have you sitting there saying, what in the absolute fuck are you doing, dude? Like, what are you doing? This is a bad call. And yeah, it's a little frustrating in that, but if you go with it, if you let the film take you on its journey, I promise you there are some scares towards the end of this that are just going to get your heart pumping, dude. Like, I still have some of this imagery burned into my brain, and I don't want to go into exactly what it is, but it is absolutely terrifying. And yes, there's a little tiny bunny rabbit in it. I love it. I want it. I want somebody to make it. I want to have that on my shelf. I love it. I love what they do with it. It's so cool. And yeah, I fell in love with this movie just recently. I watched it because I knew Oddity was coming out, and I wanted to see just what this director had in store for us. And man, oh man, this guy knows what the fuck he is doing when it comes to supernatural horror. And I think that this is great. And this isn't just supernatural horror. There's a lot of psychological aspects to this. So to give you a little bit of a synopsis, a lone drifter suffering from partial memory loss accepts a job to look after a psychologically troubled woman in an abandoned house on an isolated island. That's all you need to know. Go in there with fresh eyes, fresh mindset, and I guarantee you this is going to take you on a wild ride. Oddity is one of those films that'll do the same thing, but with much broader strokes, I think, much broader implications. This one is so personal and so claustrophobic. I absolutely loved it. And again, only an hour and 28 minutes, so it's not that deep of a commitment, and I think by the time you finish watching this, you will be well acquainted with Damian McCarthy, and you'll understand a bit more of what he is about when it comes to his possession stories. And again, it's not just a complete possession story. I don't want to get into any more, but it has some really twisted elements to it, and I can't recommend it enough. I absolutely loved Caveat. So check that out for sure if you're going to check out anything on this list. Again, some of these are easy picks. I know some of you have probably seen Sinister. Some of you have probably seen Talk to Me. But I think that these are the ones that best fit Oddity. So there you have it, folks. There are 5 films you should check out before you see Oddity this weekend. For you horror fans who didn't know this was coming out, yes, this is going to be in select cinemas this weekend, and will be coming to Shudder in just a couple of months. I imagine a little bit closer to Halloween, but it could drop a little sooner. You never know. But yeah, I super duper recommend checking these films out and also making your way out to support Oddity. It is a much smaller film than Longlegs. Even though Longlegs was independent, this is real independent horror. So go out, support it. Let me know if this is the first time you're hearing of this film, and go into it, look up some stuff, learn about Damian McCarthy, watch Caveat, and then come back here, tell me what you thought. Check out our full review, which will be out again, like I said, tomorrow. And yeah, guys, that's going to wrap it up here for me. I hope you enjoyed this list. And yeah, I look forward to putting out another one here shortly. I think that we're going about a week without a new release horror film, at least one that I can think of. I'll try to find something, but you will definitely get a recommendation list from me regardless. And yeah, other than that, we got a lot of great stuff up on the channel. If you haven't seen my top 5 films you should watch before Longlegs, check that out, as well as Maxine, as well as all of our Longlegs coverage. So yeah, that wraps it up for me. Until next time, guys, I'm Dylan Newell, and remember, stay scared.
Do the horror shit, gonna do it live. Cause Splattercast kick it every day they live. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass. Splattercast, gonna slash your ass.